Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review of the X-Files miniseries episode 1 and 2. This video is for where I review the newest episodes of the new X-Files series, episode 1, My Struggle, and episode 2, Founder's Mutation. I'm going to have to give a spoiler warning for both of these episodes. If you have not seen them, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise things may be spoiled for you. So before I get into the individual episodes, let me get into my impressions of the new X-Files series as a whole. And I have to say, episode 1 did not impress me. I'll get more into the specifics later. Suffice to say, I felt a bad feeling as if this return to the X-Files was unnecessary and going to end up being squandered. However, episode 2 mostly alleviated those fears and got me thinking they knew exactly what they were doing. However, we still have 4 episodes left, so I'll have to see how it goes. I'm thinking they could take it either way. What they do with the next 4 episodes could end up making the first one great in retrospect, or it could overshadow what was great about episode 2 if they end up being horrible. So this is all still very much in the air for me. So let's start off with episode 1, My Struggle. Now I heard this was going to be the mythology heavy episode, so I was looking forward to it and thought it would be my favorite, but I was massively disappointed. First off, one of the main reasons I was looking forward to a reboot of the X-Files was because the series had ended on a cliffhanger where there was an alien conspiracy slowly taking over the government in an invasion of the body snatchers type style, and it got so bad that Mulder became a fugitive from made up charges and had to be on the run, where he found out that all of this was a precursor to a planned alien invasion that was meant to happen in the year 2012. However, in the 2008 movie I Want to Believe, Mulder was all too easily pardoned for his crimes in a way I did not buy at all, and the whole alien invasion storyline seemed to be forgotten. So I was hoping this series would pick it up again, but instead it did something else, something the show had already done in season 5, and I didn't like it then, and I certainly did not like it now, and that is trying to say that aliens never existed and it was just the government messing with things. Well, to clarify, it didn't say aliens never existed. It said aliens were there, but they were just checking up on us, and the government stole alien technology and used it to build all these ships, and they're the ones who did all these experiments and stuff. And so we're meant to believe that all the stuff we saw in the first X-Files series weren't really aliens, they were people using alien technology. I'm sorry, but that just did not jive at all with what's been established. So we're supposed to believe that the shape-shifting alien bounty hunters who bled poisonous green blood, and the black oil, and the super soldiers, and the big alien demon thingy, and a spaceship seen in the X-Files movie, that was all just the government. Come the fuck on! You know, you might accuse me of being a bit of a nerd here, and to be fair, I recently watched all 9 seasons, so all of this is still fresh in my mind. But no, from a strictly writing standpoint, when the story you're writing does not match up with what came before it, it's called bad writing, plain and simple. It's not nerdy or nitpicky to point this out. It's bad writing. Like, okay, I get what they're trying to do with changing the focus from the aliens being the bad guys to the government, because that's something that's always bothered me about the X-Files, how the aliens were typical evil invasion type aliens, which I always saw as an all too easy cliche. So to change the focus to where the aliens were benevolent and it was the government doing all the shady things was a nice idea. However, it doesn't work because it's completely inconsistent with everything that came before it. Now, you may be saying to yourself, now wait a minute, Mark, just because Tad O'Malley said these things doesn't make them true. Maybe the whole thing's a red herring, and by the end of the season we'll find out it's actually totally not true. Yeah, maybe. Doesn't change the fact that Mulder believes it now. And, that right there is inconsistent. Mulder would never believe that because he saw aliens with his own two freaking eyes tons of times. Are we forgetting that? That he himself was abducted and tortured by aliens. And yeah, I mentioned they even already did this storyline in season 5 with Mulder's thinking it had nothing to do with aliens and it was all just the government. That storyline sucked then and it sucks now. But leaving that aside and focusing on the rest of the episode, it felt a bit rushed to me. I didn't quite buy the character interactions. Tattoo O'Malley felt a bit fake and a failed attempt to mimic reality, and the storyline was Sveta didn't really feel fully fleshed out to me. It kind of felt underdeveloped. Plus, I really didn't see why they would reopen the X-Files. That seemed to come out of nowhere. And don't get me started on the cigarette smoking man. I remember when I saw the finale of the X-Files where they seemed to go out of their way to make it 1,000% clear that he died. In fact, I remember noting at the time I saw it that they seemed to be purposely trying to premeditatively prevent themselves from ever doing what they did here by bringing him back to life. I mean, come on! That scene where he dies, he is hit with a missile from a helicopter at point blank range, and we literally see his skull explode on screen. They could not have made it any clearer that he died. In an interview, Chris Carter said he felt the reason they give for why he's back and he's still alive will be consistent with what happened in the finale, and I can't wait to hear what this great reason is. I'm already pretty certain I'll think it's bullshit. The only possible explanations I can think of is either time travel or clones. As in, it was just a clone of the smoking man who died. I think either one of those would be really far-fetched and obvious that the writers are reaching, but at least they would be plausible. Any other explanation would be total bullshit. But I'll wait and see what they come up with. However, all that being said, this episode was entertaining. It certainly grabbed my attention and had a lot of elements that marked it as the X-Files that I missed, such as seeing Mulder and Scully chase down an alien mystery and Skinner butt heads with Mulder but ultimately end up helping him, and the ending where everything went to hell and Sveta was killed. That was chilling. But overall, it just felt kind of forced, kind of rushed. So my rating for my struggle is a 5 average. So next we get to episode 2, Founder's Mutation. Now I was more hesitant about this episode because I heard it was going to be a Monster of the Week episode, and typically I'm not a fan of those kinds of episodes, but I was pleasantly surprised as I ended up really liking this episode. First, it started off with a creepy scene with a guy hearing weird sounds and killing himself, and then the big X comes up with the classic X-Files music, and that's something I really miss, so this made me feel really nostalgic. And the thought that I was about to see something that was brand new just gave me chills. At any rate, I felt this episode went on to tell an extremely creepy and emotionally touching story with all the landmarks that made the X-Files great. A creepy mystery that leads us where we thought it would never go. And at the same time, we get the personal backstory of Mulder and Scully and how they regret giving their son up for adoption as they imagine what their lives would have been like if, he was still in their lives. Of course, it always ends up with something horrible happening to him, reinforcing that they felt they did the right thing by giving him up because they would have brought tragedy into his life, but they still really regretted not having him around, and this was very touching. It was something I really bought and thought really humanized Mulder and Scully in a way the show seldom did. In fact, the show has had a record of trying to do artsy stuff like this, but it ends up looking boring, silly, and pretentious. But this time, it totally worked for the series, and it really got me involved. But on top of that, we get an amazing mystery of this creepy noise, which went in a direction I wasn't expecting at all, as it led to a young man with genetically enhanced abilities who was simply looking for his sister with the same abilities, and what happened when they found each other was really creepy in a typical X-Files way, yet pulled off so much better than many of the previous episodes did. And plus, I wouldn't say this was entirely separate from the mythology, as it had to do with the government using alien DNA to experiment with humans, which was connected to what happened in episode 1, so I'm not sure I'd even call this a Monster of the Week type episode. However, at any rate, this story ended up being amazing, so my rating for Founder's Mutation is a 9, excellent. So that's it for my review of the first 2 episodes of The X-Files. Be sure to check back here every week for a new episode review of The X-Files every week. Also check out my channel for many videos on shows like Game of Thrones and Star Trek, as well as upcoming weekly episode reviews on shows like The Expanse, Better Call Saul, and Vikings. And be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot.